Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over a Shiny app coded in R. The goal here is to use 1-minute real-time data, and we're going to plot the real-time data against historical returns that have a high correlation with the current real-time data. Now, we will need two things to get this app to work. The first is historical data for prior sessions, and the second is access to an API that gives us the 1-minute data. Now we can just enter a symbol and it's going to load up the historical data or historical sessions along with the real-time data. And then we have a scroll bar, so we can plot historical sessions and we can go from 1 to 20. So if we click on 3, it's just going to plot 3 additional lines that have the highest correlation with the current session. We can manually refresh the data by clicking this button, or if we just wait a couple of seconds, it will just refresh on its own, and this will allow the real-time data to flow in. Next, we have a prediction. Now, in my attempt to try and figure out where the market was heading by using the correlations, what I ended up adding is a prediction marker here. So from the current session until the market closes, how many of these historical lines closed higher at the end of the session. So as you see from the vertical line, which is our starting point until the end of the session, they all close higher, which in turn gives us a prediction of 100% higher. But as with all predictions, these are not accurate, so I'm still trying to refine that. And if we click on 20 sessions, you'll see that we still have a pretty good high probability, but it's significantly lower than by just using 3. So if we scroll back to 3 here, if we hover over to the chart, we see that each of these lines provide us with a date for the session along with the adjusted price and the correlation along with the current session price as well. Now we can click on a different symbol, and so long as the symbol exists in your database, it should have no problem returning the data. So here now we see Amazon, and since I'm recording this after the market has closed, you'll notice that we have the same number of bars for the current session, and that's just because I hard-coded it to just return the first 200, I believe, but I'll show you where in the code you can comment that out. And that's pretty much it for the app. If you scroll down, you can kind of zoom in by using the scroller, which you can kind of see here, the full 1-minute data. So let's go ahead and go over the code. So we need to require these packages, and for some reason HiCharter uses UTC time zone. In order to use your local time zone, you need to run lines 10 through 12, and we have a couple of functions. The first one is to load the historical data, and I'm going to be using my database, and of course the more data you have, the better this will result. So here I'm just going to connect to my database, which I'm just using a simple SQLite database, and I'm going to make a query for that particular ticker. And since this is a data frame, I'm going to convert it into an XTS object. We want to make sure that the current times are only during the regular market session. So that's from 9:30 to 15:59. And we're going to split by sessions since we want to compare the current session with all priors. Once we have our sessions, we want to convert it into a named list. And here you can see a couple of messages outputted to let you know if something is off and that we were able to return the data. And then finally, just return the session list. Now our next function is going to fetch the current session. So we're going to use the Trader API to request 1-minute data. And here in line 67 is what you want to out. As I mentioned, since I'm recording this after the market has closed, I just hard-coded it to return the first 200 rows. Next, we want to return that as a data frame and in the same format as the prior function, since we're going to be running correlations, which brings us to that particular function where we compute the correlations. So here in the correlation function, we're going to insert our current returns and the historical returns and just return the correlation. So we are going to be using returns for the correlations, not just the prices. And next we have our Shiny UI. So that's pretty straightforward, and it'll create the UI that you saw at the beginning of the video. Now for our server, we're going to have a couple of things in here. We're going to first start by creating a reactive pool for the current session. So as you saw it kind of flickering every few seconds, it'll just continuously fetch that data for us according to the ticker that you input. Same thing for the historical sessions. We're going to make sure we load up the historical sessions depending on the user's input. We also have that button to refresh manually. So if that's the case, we're just going to request current session. Next, we have a function to request the top correlating periods or sessions. So we're going to fetch the current session and the historical sessions. We're going to extract the close from the current session, calculate the return, and then for each of the days in our historical sessions, we're going to compute the correlation between the historical and the current. So that'll get returned here in correlations. Since we're seeking the highest correlating periods, if there's any NAs, we're just going to return negative infinity. And next, we're going to get the top end sessions. So depending on where the user scrolls is what that number will return here in the input. So between 1 and 20. And then we're going to return a list containing the top dates, the actual data for the historical sessions, and the correlation. Next, we have our prediction. So again, this is still in the works. But basically from what I explained, we're going to take the last observation and our current data, and we're going to use that as a starting point till the end of the session, and then just return the number of sessions that closed higher from our starting point divided by the total number of sessions to give us a percentage. And then lastly, we have our chart rendering. So we're going to be using high charts, and we're going to start off by requesting the current session followed by the top number of sessions. We're going to do a bit of formatting for the timestamps here, and since we don't know how far back it's going to go, I kind of re-index the historical sessions for scaling purposes. So in order to do that, we need the first close of our current session, and we also want to re-index the timestamps, so we're also going to extract that from our current data. We're going to start off by using iCharter and plot the current session. Next, we want to make sure to add all the lines for the historical session, which is this block here from 227 to 246. And then lastly, for the tooltips, as you saw, we want to include the current price along with the date, and we're going to add the historical date for the prior sessions along with the correlation. And that's pretty much it for the chart. And after that's complete, we can go ahead and run the app by passing in our UI and server. So with that, guys, this concludes the video. As I mentioned, it's not for trading purposes. I just want to monitor the data during the regular session. But if you're interested in this type of thing, I'll leave a link down in the description area to my Patreon where you can find the script. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.